is when you earn your pay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I brought him too.
Thank you.
No.
I brought. Yeah.
I know. I really feel like that about that.
I'm Mark, I'm still on these guys. The 20th federal decision, which I lost because I haven't had time to clean up. I still want your signature to finish fireworks tomorrow.
Huh?
But I'll send it out to you before I do that. The other one is fine.
Good job. Jim?
What do you? Of this? You can have this copy. I got it. Yeah, I'm good to go. Sure? Yeah. All right, I think this is coming late.
Oh, I'm going to take a look at it and see. Thanks. I think I already have a copy at home.
Lisa definitely sat on Thank You Vote, right? Paul Jensen one? That's so.
She did. Susan put my line off.
I think she's under the misconception she did, and it's going to come later.
It's on the staff report.
Unless her initials have changed.
Let me see if I can get her. I can't get her.
You can also have Ann Pittsburgh.
Or we could just ignore it. Continue until next month.
So I went to, like this so much,
You heard it.
and I went to get one of those fancy cases and stands that you know.
It helps, so you don't have to.
Yeah. And she doesn't even sell it. It's, Computer Solutions.
Which one is it? No.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, you're on the purple business.
I might have a waterproof case that I don't use for this one.
Does it have a stand?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anyway, we'll get started.
If there's anything I have, pretty much own.
That's my case, Ed. Paul Johnson represents the first two new business items. So we could just let them in.
It's on our way. Okay, we all mic'd up, ready to go? Terry, we recording? Okay. This is the regularly scheduled Town of Nantucket Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, January 12th? 12th? 14th? Something like that. I'm looking at, look at this. So, anyway, can I get an approval of the minutes of December 10th, 2015, or a motion to approve? Michael makes a motion, Jerem seconds. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, so Lisa is missing, or, well, she's going to be here. She sat on 3215, so we'll skip that one for now. She sat on 3415. I think, Ann, you could probably go ahead without Lisa. Yeah? Go ahead, please. So anyway, this will be 3415 NHA Properties, Inc., DBA Housing Nantucket, Schoolview Cottages for the applicant. Just identify yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Ann Kuspa, Executive Director at Housing Nantucket. I'm here. Housing Nantucket determined that 40B was not a viable option at the Seven Surfside site. Eleanor asked me to give an explanation about how we came to this decision and report it directly to the board, so that's why I'm here. Just want to give a little background information about Housing Nantucket. We're a local nonprofit. Mission is to create affordable housing solutions for island residents. We've been in existence for 22 years. We have 30 rental units and scattered sites. We manage housing for the school, for the town. We run various education programs and advocate for greater workforce housing for island residents. 3 full-time staff, 11 board members. The background for this project, we were going to create 4 units at 7 Surfside. They would all be affordable rental units. We would be doing it through house recycling. Each house was about 450 to 750 square feet. The Selectmen, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, endorsed the project. We went to the DHCD in May and received a site eligibility in August. We applied to ZBA in September of last year and expected that the permitting process would be completed by December. We would occupy 2 units by the summertime and then 2 more units after that, after phase 2 is done. So what happened was that our cost started to escalate. Between renovating the existing units and the requirements of the 40B, extra infrastructure, extra consulting fees, extra legal fees, required reserves, accounting, etc., it was 3 times the expense for 2 times the units. So to cover the higher construction costs, we had to increase our rents. So this limited our ability to adjust the rents down when a weak economy came. So we wouldn't be able to maintain our financial obligations. In a traditional 40B, 25% of the units are affordable, 75% are market rate. So the 75% of the market rate units subsidize the affordable units. In this project, all units were affordable, so we couldn't subsidize, especially since it was a 4-unit project, so it was so small that we couldn't subsidize those higher costs with the market rate unit rents. The uncertain timeline with the permitting through you and then also through DHCD, because we were doing house recycling, it was really impossible to do that and commit to our house donors not knowing if we would be able to take the houses. Then our pro formas were based on this house recycling. So if things didn't work out with this particular house, we'd have to start from scratch with our budgets too. So that was not ideal. The comp permit conditions, having all 4 units have COs before we could occupy any of the units, that was a problem for us also to meet our financial obligations as well as our costs too. We wanted to get some units out there as soon as possible and fill them with Nantucket's workforce. So we needed to put up some fencing between the properties. That increased our costs. And then the condition with no pets, we felt that that wasn't consistent with our existing policies, as well as when the economy got weak, we felt that it would put us at a disadvantage and limit our tenant pool. The administrative burden, oversight, more legal exposure, less control of the project. So we were faced with a decision. We would either withdraw the 40B application, we could occupy 2 units by the summer, or we would wait until 2017 or beyond to create these units. And so what we decided to do is to withdraw the permit. And we appreciated your evaluation of the project. Look forward to working with you in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Concerns? Thoughts? No?
We do intend to create 4 units there. We are looking at doing it through other avenues.
Okay. It's okay with me. I mean, there's no real need to comment on it unless you want
You
to.
want a motion for withdrawal without prejudice?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, so Michael makes the motion. Well, let me just go to the audience. I doubt anybody's here for this one. But anybody want to talk about this one? No. Okay, so Michael's made the motion to withdraw without prejudice. Karen seconded it. Lisa's not sitting on this because you weren't here at the beginning.
Yep.
So it's only the other four that were originally. So, any further discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, so going back to 3215, Paul S. Jensen, trustee, 23 Sankaty Road, Realty Trust, 23 Sankaty Road, for the applicant. You're on it.
I am.
Mr. Chairman, my name's Paul Jensen. I'm here on behalf of the 23 Sankaty Road Trust and also the Seize the Day Trust. Just to remind the board, this is an application for special permit or variance to allow the demolition of a non-conforming structure on a non-conforming lot that was created pursuant to 81L. With the other non-conforming lot, this was that subdivision of two properties, of a property that has two pre-1955 structures into two undersized lots that we now allow under our bylaw. And of course, those two lots to do the subdivision have to be owned by the same person. So that's where we were when we first applied, and we were looking for permission to demolish a non-conforming structure on the back, but then we would have an issue with merger. This board and the staff believe and encouraged us to just transfer the back lot where this property is into separate ownership, and thus under the new definition of ownership under the bylaw, there wouldn't be an issue and relief would not be necessary. We have done so. We have transferred the lot to the Seize the Day Trust, and what I'm asking the board to do right now, because of some uncertainty about merger that will going forward, I would like the board to deny my application as unnecessary because of the definition of ownership, and the lots are now in separate ownership because they are in separate ownership under the bylaw.
Okay. Move twist. Does everybody remember this? And have any comment on it?
If we were to do that, we'd put the motion in a positive and vote it down, correct? If I remember.
Paul?
Yes. What? Excuse me?
So you want a positive motion, and then we, in essence, if we were going to vote to deny, would just...
The reason you deny is it's unnecessary.
Go
May I
ahead,
defer
Ellen.
to staff?
Mr. Chairman, this would be similar to the application we heard in, I believe, November. Jesse Fresher represented Elton Tom Nevers. Slightly different situation, but same kind of relief was requested where deny the application by virtue of the fact that the relief is no longer necessary pursuant to the change in the bylaw.
Well, just out of curiosity, if it's not necessary, why would we deny it? Why wouldn't we just say it's not necessary, go away?
If you prefer, you could make a determination that the relief is not necessary. But
I'd rather
leave it up to Paul, that's satisfied.
If we do a written determination, I would be happy with that also.
It just doesn't make sense to me to deny something if it's unnecessary. So, does that make sense? Does any of that make sense? Or sure.
Mr. Chairman, Ilana Quirk from Town Council. You have an application for relief for a non-conforming situation, and the request now is to withdraw it because it's not necessary. And you're being asked, I think, to make a determination that it's not necessary. Certainly, you can approve it. You can deny it. You can approve it with conditions. However, in the event that you were to say, well, denied because we think it's not necessary, I want to make the point that the ultimate determination as to what's necessary from a zoning perspective will be for the zoning officer when building permit or occupancy permit relief is sought.
Okay. Make
And the reason why it's important that everyone keep that in mind is because you don't have necessarily all of the facts in front of you right now. I'm not saying that there's anything amiss here, but it will be for the zoning officer in the first instance to make that determination. And in the event that anyone is dissatisfied with that, then they would have the ability to appeal it. They would appeal it to this board. So that determination lies with the zoning enforcement officer.
Okay, I was a little distracted by the ringing phone, but is everybody
Well,
clear?
I think so. I think that there's some guidance, some subliminal message that's sent to the zoning officer in advance of his decision.
Well, certainly, the concern that I have, of course, is that in the event that the zoning officer makes whatever determination it is that gets made in the future, anyone who is dissatisfied with that would come to this board. And so I would caution this board to remain open-minded in the event that such an appeal were to come to you in the future. Certainly, you could accept a withdrawal without prejudice and indicate that you understand that the applicant asserts that the relief is not necessary, and you could adopt that and say, well, it's ultimately up to the zoning enforcement officer to make that determination, but based upon what the applicant is saying, it's appropriate from the board's perspective that the relief be withdrawn or denied.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Would you prefer withdrawal or a denial?
I would prefer a denial with a statement of why it's denied.
Okay. Does anybody else out there want to talk about this one? No. Yeah? Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Cormac Collier, Nantucket Land Council. I don't have an opinion on this at all. It's just I wanted just clarification on this in terms of how it potentially would relate to other applications before you with this new definition. It appears that they've put the back lot into a trust where the beneficiaries are still most likely the same as the owners, the abutting owners. The application for you in November was more to do with a clear delineation between wife and husband and the process through the 80s up to then. I guess I'm just having a little bit of a concern if you put something in the statement saying that there is a clear separation of ownership, how that can potentially affect you in the future. For me, there's no doubt that the owners are the same.
Could I speak to that for
Yes,
just
please.
a second?
Please do.
Yep.
The owners are two trusts, but the beneficiaries of those trusts are different people. They are related, but they're not husband and wife. And they're all adults.
Okay.
So there is arguably separate ownership by the conveyance we did.
As defined by the bylaw.
As
it's
defined,
written
definitely
today.
defined by the bylaw, as defined by Mass General Law and the case law behind it. On the matter of merger, there would still be a question, probably. But the problem is, I came for you before the board and I asked for this relief, and you kept telling me, look at the bylaw. It's not necessary if you put it into separate ownership.
Okay. I don't have any fundamental problem with the underlying situation. We've certainly, in the past, blessed many of them, the 81L situation. So I just want to do it the right way. Any thoughts on that? Yes, please. Before Ms. Quirk or after?
Well, before, she's going to
Okay, go ahead. Do you mind?
Oh, not at all.
I know who you are, but
Yeah, Mr. Cohen, Paul and I work together, but I'm not representing this client. As a general proposition, I think that the bylaw currently creates a title problem for all of these lots if you try to demolish and rebuild a house because you have this momentary empty lot next to a lot where there's a question of common ownership. And as you know, the issue with merger is both ownership and control. And I think what is critically important, whether the board grants or denies the permit, is that the board makes a finding in this case and in all of these cases as to whether or not there's common ownership and control, because otherwise we're just we have a situation where there's no way to get around these title problems, these title questions where someone is trying to just rebuild a house. And in this case, in Paul's particular case, he's curing he's trying to cure a zoning nonconformity by changing the house. So I think instead of turning away the applicants who are coming in seeking relief, I think you should be granting, I would request positive permits, but even if you grant negative permits, it kind of doesn't matter. What's important is to have the title problem cured by having these findings.
But we're not going to be speaking of the control issue. We don't know who controls the trusts, et cetera.
Well, see, that's the problem, is that, I mean, Paul told you in this particular case who it is, but the case law says that merger is determined based on an assessment of ownership and control. And what you have told Paul is that because it's separate ownership for the bylaw purposes, that's all we need to look at. So he could be compliant with the bylaw and potentially still have a merger problem, which is why he's coming to you seeking relief, and why John Brescher came to you seeking relief. And I actually came for a separate permit a year ago on this, and you granted it. So I'm glad I made it out ahead of the other one.